What are things that only mentally strong people can do? Story 1. I can proudly say that I am a much stronger person after months severely struggling with my mental health, and at my lowest point, instead of suicide, I drove myself to the ER, full well knowing how awful that experience would be. It sucked, but I don't regret it. It brought me closer to the family and friends who really care. Story 2. The only time I struggle with this is when it's 3 a.m. and my baby is screaming and my husband and I are both sleep deprived, and usually we act like it didn't happen though, unless it was a screaming much or a real issue was the root of our anger towards each other. Story 3. My wife and I instituted a no-talking rule for our 3am wake-ups a few years ago, and it's a game changer. Just head nods or minimal asks like milk, etc. You're already sleep deprived and frustrated just from waking up, so setting a ground rule that keeps all non-essential discussion until the morning really helped us. Story 4. I have the hardest time with this. Growing up, my mother took everything personally, so I wasn't allowed to be angry or express feelings that would somehow threaten her role as a mother. If I gave her a look she thought was defiant, she would hit me. To this day, I'm 40. When I try to stand up for myself, I feel panic and therefore avoid it. I've let go of a lot. Story 5. This is always a tough balance to strike. I was in the gym yesterday, small apartment building gym, and a younger woman came in having a loud speakerphone conversation. The kind where you hold your phone flat in front of you. She was drowning out my headphones. After 5 minutes, I asked her to please not have a phone conversation in the gym. She left and got her boyfriend, who just stood at the entrance and started at me for 10 minutes straight. She then filed a complaint with the building concierge that I was making her uncomfortable and feel unsafe. Luckily, there are cameras in the gym, so the concierge told me not to talk to anyone and make complaints in writing after the fact. I'm starting to hate this new world. Story 6. I'm going to share what helped me improve. It's going to sound strange and counterintuitive, so hang on with it. I stopped wanting to improve my behavior. Instead, I started paying attention to it. I stopped judging my thoughts and feelings and started observing them and their impact. The truly blizzard thing is that the more I practice my self-awareness, the more I notice that I stop doing certain things completely automatically. No willpower needed, and it's an incremental process. The more I change, the more things I notice about myself, which starts a new change. The only thing you need to be careful about is the direction of the chain. You can shape it through what you focus on a given time. What I deduced was that the mind is like a river. You cannot oppose the flow of water, but you cannot oppose the flow of water, but you can direct it. Story 7. Just being present and aware, intentionally reflecting and observing leads to incremental change that compounds over time. Also, when deciding to make an incremental change, it's important to reflect on and understand the why of why it is important and you want to do it. This gives it meaning and power. Story 8. I feel like I'm pretty good at self-reflection and evaluating my actions and decisions, but sometimes I get so spun up in a whirlwind of doubting myself and my every move that I walk away feeling mentally weaker. Anyone else deal with that? Story 9. I've thought about this a lot, and I think I'd add, know when to accept criticism. Not all criticism is helpful. If it's from an employee, a customer, client, respected friend or colleague, mentor, then yes, you should listen. If someone is just exerting an opinion that adds no value to your life, you have the right to ignore it. Story 10. My dad spent every day of the last few years of my mom's life being essentially her sole caregiver. People knew it took a strain on my dad physically and mentally, and would either offer to relieve the caregiving so that he could have a few days break, or tried to convince him to admit mom to a long-term care facility. My dad, being the strong-willed man that he is, refused those options. He said that two things convinced him that he didn't want either. The fact that he watched his mother take care of family members approaching the end of their lives, and his wedding vows that he would be devoted to my mother in sickness and health. Story 11. I looked after my dad during the end of his cancer diagnosis. I wasn't strong at all. I just did it because the alternative of seeing him suffer, sit in his mess, or want for anything was far worse than me doing what needed to be done. I think only once you're backed in a corner with no exit does true strength show. I don't feel strong now, probably because a lot of my present struggles have exits or temporary escapes. We're like water. Humans will always choose the path of least resistance until that path isn't an option. Story 12. For real. Both my divorced parents are in poor health, and my severely disabled bro has been lacking any care workers for him. The pay is absolute shit, so I left my job and work with him full-time too. It's a lot, but I'm the only person who can do it all. Story 13. Yep, I was a teacher, and when I dealt with cheer moms bitching over their hair bows and shit, I'm like, I'll have no idea what real problems are. Hang in there, lean into a hobby when you have time to. It helps. Piano is my therapy. Story 14. There was a period in my life where I was caring for my dad, and also my kids. They were an infant and a 3-year-old at the time. Both since have been diagnosed with autism. My 3-year-old at the time was such a flight risk. Break thing. I loved my dad, but I was grateful when he died. He wasn't living a happy life. Caring for him took such a severe toll on me. I was glad on one hand that the load was lightened, as much as I loved him. I couldn't do it again now. My children are enough. When my in-laws need help, they are on their own. They have been strangers over the years, so hopefully they will know not to expect it. Story 15. Growing up, I had zero discipline. It wasn't my mom's fault. I just had a hard time understanding why it was important and figured no one really noticed me much anyway. A few years ago, I decided I didn't like who I had become. I was obese, depressed, miserable, and in an abusive relationship. Learning discipline was hard but well worth it and led to so much good. I lost 150 IBs. I quit drinking. I have a wonderful, supportive girlfriend. I have a few years of martial arts training under my belt, a lifelong dream. I paid off $15,000 in credit card debt. I have a steady job. I'm going back to school. That's not to say I still don't struggle, but it is so empowering to face down your demons and live to tell the tale. So damn empowering. Story 16. Recently, I failed at something for which I have been working for years. When the deciding moment came and it didn't work out for me, it was a hard fall, flat on face. In this situation, giving up on everything looks an appealing option. I have to gather every ounce of strength in me to gather the broken pieces and keep going. So yes, trying again in face of adversity with all the baggage is indicator of mentally strong person. Story 17. I'm an introvert too, and I live alone, and I love it. But we'd be lying if we say every single moment of every single day is fun. We're cut from the same cloth that most other humans are, and humans are social animals. So there's those sad Sunday evenings or random days when you don't want to face those thoughts of yours or look at your body in the mirror. It takes mental fortitude to overcome those moments and times.